You know, it's astonishing how many people have found a very clear common sense voice and a lack of fear. They seem to be all over this administration. Stephen Miller is one of them, don't you think, Pat?
Definitely, yeah. And he was talking about the angry Dems and had some things to say about them. Deputy Chief Stephen Miller, cut 14.
The Democrat use of the term unelected is really quite remarkable here. Donald Trump was elected in an overwhelming landslide. These are Donald Trump staffers. In the sense, like saying that Mike Walls, the National Security Advisor, is unelected, or Susie Wiles, the Chief of Staff, is unelected, or Donald Trump's communications team is unelected. This is presidential staff that serves at the pleasure and for the president, just as I do. I am a staffer for the President of the United States. He is elected. He is the one the American people have chosen to implement his agenda. This is the agenda the American people voted for, that he is asking his staff, his subordinates, his employees to implement. The unelected power in this country is the rogue bureaucracy. USAID is unelected. The FBI that persecuted President Trump for 8 years is unelected. The CIA and those who have laundered intelligence to try to change the foreign policy of the United States are unelected. President Trump is restoring democracy by controlling the federal bureaucracy. There is one man in the country who is elected by the whole American people to implement an agenda they support. That is the president. Every other officer in this country, members of Congress and senators, are elected at the state or local level.
Let me ask you.
The Constitution puts one man in charge of the federal executive branch, and that's the president.
I understood.
Let him finish.
He's absolutely
awesome.
Right.
Yeah.
He is awesome and absolutely right. I mean, that's the thing that I just don't understand. When the federal judge tried to block, and did for this weekend, but it's not going to last long, tried to block the Secretary of the Treasury from even looking at the data that is produced by the Treasury.
Yeah.
Who is running things?
Well,
my gosh.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent was interviewed over the weekend, and he had some things to say about just about that.
Mr. Secretary, we are inside the cash room at the Treasury Department. It is almost impossible to overstate how important the work that is done in this building is to the U.S. financial system. Yet right now, there is widespread concern about the DOGE team's access to sensitive payment systems. Are you worried at all that that access and that tinkering of the payment systems could affect the Treasury's market or cause any disruption?
Good. Well, Saleha, thank you for asking me about that, because there's a lot of misinformation out there. First of all, when you say the DOGE team, these are Treasury employees. It is 2 Treasury employees, one of whom I personally interviewed in his final round. There is no tinkering with the system. They are on read-only. They are looking. They can make no changes. It is an operational program to suggest improvement. So we make 1.3 billion payments a year. And this is 2 employees who are working with a group of long-standing employees.
The letter that the Treasury Department sent earlier this week talked about how the team currently does not have access to change the system. Have they at any point this year had the ability to make changes?
Absolutely not. This is no different than you would have at a private company. And by the way, the ability to change the system sits over at the Federal Reserve. So it doesn't even lie in this building. So they could make suggestions on how to change the system, but we don't even run the system.
And if they ask for, if they request the ability to change the system, would you grant that?
No, again, they have no ability to change the system. I have no ability to grant that change. That they can make suggestions, then it would go to the Federal Reserve, and just like any large ERP system, there would be tests, there would be this, there would be that, and then the Fed will determine whether these changes are robust or not.
As the Secretary of Treasury, you also oversee the IRS. Do you know what kind of access the team has to IRS data or individual taxpayer data?
Well, I'm glad you asked that too, because look, the IRS, the privacy issue is one of the biggest issues. And over the past 4 years, we've seen a lot of leaks out of there. The IRS systems are quite poor. When I started in college in 1980, I learned to program in COBOL. I think there are 12 different systems at the IRS that still run on COBOL. But as of now, there is no engagement at the IRS.
Elon Musk, just half an hour ago, tweeted out that Treasury needs to stop approving certain payments. Has your staff tried to block any payments here at Treasury?
We have not, and I'm glad you asked that too. And just to put in perspective, Elon and I are completely aligned in terms of cutting waste and increasing accountability and transparency for the American people. I believe that this DOGE program in my adult life is one of the most important audits of government or changes to government structure we have seen. That when I was in my 20s, we had the Grace Report, and there's some great suggestions that came out of that, never implemented. Under Clinton and Gore, I think it was to government efficiency or reduce government. Nothing happened. So President Trump came in, there's a big agenda, and I think that there are gigantic cost savings for the American people here. And I think it's unfortunate the way the media wants to lampoon what is going on. These are highly trained professionals. This is not some roving band going around doing things. This is methodical, and it is going to yield big savings.
Jeez. And what's wrong with that? Is there anything wrong with that? I don't think so.
Did you hear a non-hostile question coming from the Bloomberg reporter?
No. A non-hostile?
If you want,
no. But he handled it in a non-hostile way. That's for sure.
Yeah, very well.
Great, very well. Wasn't he?
I mean, yeah, and it's a little scary that that the Treasury Secretary can't make any of these decisions. They're all made by the Federal Reserve.
Right.
That's a problem.
Right.
Which is why DOGE wants to bring Ron Paul in for an audit of the Fed, which would be fantastic.
That would be great.
Can you imagine what we would find at the Fed now?
Oh, my gosh. I can't imagine it. And it's the Fed with the power to make these changes. That's amazing, too, that they can't even do it from the Treasury. So that's kind of eye-opening. But I think they need to use that term audit of government more.
Yes.
Because what's wrong with that?
I mean, that's why they're going into the Pentagon. The 7th audit failed. Let me ask you something. She brings up the IRS. The government hired 80,000 new IRS agents to go over your records to make sure no funny business is going on with you, that you're paying every dime you're supposed to pay because there's a shortfall. No, there's not a shortfall. They're spending too much. When we go in and try to send accountants in to say, how did you spend this money? The same thing the IRS does to you every year, they squeal like little pigs. I don't know. If you went into the IRS every year with the attitude the Democrats have, you'd be audited every year. Because somebody, probably rightfully so, would go, wait a minute, why are you panicking here so much? Why are you saying that we can't have access to your records? This is a legal operation. What's happening here? And it kills me that the media is sticking up for corruption. Whose side are they on?
Well, they're on the side of corruption because they're benefiting from it. And that's been the problem for how many decades now? For how many centuries now?
I know.
Have we run the nation in a way that the founding fathers intended since, 1830? Probably not.
No. So you know what? I have a copy of the first budget. It was on the front page of a Columbia newspaper from South Carolina. And it lays out George Washington's budget and it actually asked Congress to increase the budget for firewood because the Capitol was cold and they needed extra firewood to keep things warm. And I don't even know if that got passed. I have no idea if that got passed. Jeez. But that's the way we should be. We're like, you know what? Put a sweater on, Congress.
Yeah.
Oh, you're a little cold in there? Put a sweater on.
Exactly.
They're the ones that should be putting the sweater on, not us. Not us.
Look how Thomas Jefferson struggled with the Louisiana Purchase. I mean, we almost didn't do that because he thought it wasn't proper. He thought it was unconstitutional. But it turned out to be too good a deal, and we did it anyway. But they had a completely different mindset. You know, the funds that the federal government had that they got from American taxpayers, whether they were paying excise taxes or wherever the taxes came from, those were sacred funds. And they didn't just throw them out to anybody for any reason. We got to get back to that.
We could spend $1 trillion and have it all just vanish on us. But if Donald Trump says, let's take $2 trillion and buy Greenland, everybody would freak out. Which one should you freak out about? The investment or the loss? It's an unspeakable horror what is going on and how people are reacting to it. Everybody in America should be happy about this. One other truth speaker, somebody else who's just very good at just saying exactly what he means and getting right to the truth, is Hegseth. Here he is talking about our strength, cut 22.
I think the single dumbest phrase in military history is our diversity is our strength. I think our strength is our unity. Our strength is our shared purpose, regardless of our background, regardless of how we grew up, regardless of our gender, regardless of our race. In this department, we will treat everyone equally. We will treat everyone with fairness. We will treat everyone with respect. And we will judge you as an individual by your merit and by your commitment to the team and the mission. That's how it has been. That's how it will be. Any inference otherwise is meant to divide or create complications that otherwise should not and do not exist.
I got to tell you, how is that controversial at all? You know why they keep teams together? You go through buds and you keep that team together because their strength is their unity. You don't send them into war with a bunch of people that are all different than each other. You send them into war that all have different skills, yes, but are acting as one.